Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to yet another marvelous video. 10 moments of Berserk rage in Tekken Bloodline. The Tekken Bloodline is a series based on the Tekken games. The series follows the main protagonist, Jin Kazama, through various struggles in his life. Just like the game, the series has mind-boggling action and combat sequences where characters burst into Berserk rage and annihilate their enemies. Here are the top 10 moments when characters shun their veil of sanity and use their fists to exude rage in the most brutal fashion. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Ogre devours Jun Kazama. In the first instance, we have the duel between Jin's mother Jun Kazama and the Ogre. The Ogre is a powerful mystical creature who is devoid of human emotions. The Ogre makes his first appearance a few moments after Jun teaches a lesson to the boy's drunk father, who tried to threaten her and her son with a broken glass bottle. Despite being a competent martial artist trained in the Kazama style of fighting, Jun Kazama struggles to stand toe-to-toe in front of the Ogre's mighty rage. She hits the Ogre countless times, but barely manages to scratch it. Meanwhile, it sends her spinning with one kick. After that, the Ogre stabs her neck and is about to choke the soul out of her when Jin shows up to save his mother. He hits the demon with all his strength, but fails to inflict any damage at all. The Ogre releases Jun from the choke and unleashes a mighty kick, sending the boy flying across the terrain, too wounded to get up. Jun tries to distract the Ogre with a flurry of attacks, enraging the demon even more. Having had enough of Jun, the Ogre punches her through the walls of her home, setting the place ablaze from the resulting damage. Despite being gravely injured, Jun makes a last-ditch effort to tackle the exasperated creature to save her son from the impending doom and unleashes a barrage of strikes, this time with the only motive of keeping it away from her son. She hits and grapples the Ogre, finally locking it in an armbar near her burning house so that the creature would die from the explosion of the gas cylinders inside the house, sacrificing herself in the process. The house eventually explodes, but the Ogre manages to escape owing to its mystical powers. First glimpse of the Mishima fire. To put it simply, the Mishima family has anger issues. We see Mishima's brutality the first time he encounters Jin and asks him to fight, easily smashing the teenager without any hesitation. But it is during Jin's training with Mishima that we get a proper glimpse of Mishima's rage. Jin, who had been instructed by Mishima to use only his hand techniques, tries to the best of his abilities to defeat Mishima. On the other hand, Mishima has no remorse for brutalizing his grandson and ups the ante as Jin's training progresses, knocking Jin out with one single blow every time. It is during this time we realize how brutal Mishima can be, considering he was training Jin and not fighting him. It is the ever-burning Mishima fire within Heihachi that makes him so brutal a teacher. In spite of being in a controlled environment, Heihachi Mishima's rage takes over him from time to time, although it is just a fraction of his capabilities. He hits the boy with substantial force, so much so that Jin struggles to stand up every time Heihachi hits him. In one specific instance, Heihachi wanted to ascertain Jin's breaking strength and asked him to chop a brick, and when Jin failed, he demonstrated it by chopping through 5 bricks in one go. It seems like Heihachi always has a lot of rage inside him. Jin Kazama gets enraged, man loses an arm. In this instance, Heihachi asked Jin Kazama to accompany him on a business meeting with a person who had acquired a pendant he was after. After producing the pendant to Mishima, the person asked for more money than what was agreed upon. Mishima blatantly refuses to pay the extra sum, and the man refuses to hand over the pendant to him. Here, Heihachi asked Jin to retrieve the pendant from this man and teach the guy consequences of messing with the Mishimas. The man, without hesitation, pulls out a butterfly knife and accuses Mishima of using a child to do his dirty work. Mishima dismisses the guy by telling him that he isn't worthy enough to fight him. Mishima instructs Jin to remember what he has learned. The guy leaps forward with a knife to attack Jin and nick his arm, which is enough to enrage Jin. He retaliates with a powerful punch to the man's gut. The man gets a little startled and starts swinging his knife around, which Jin manages to escape with swift dodges. Eventually, Jin, consumed by his rage, grabs the man's arm and breaks it into two. too. Mishima then asks Jin to finish the guy for good. Despite some initial hesitation, he gets rid of the guy with a flurry of punches. Mishima gets disappointed with Jin's hesitation and tells him that he won't be able to kill the ogre if he hesitates. Two generations of Mishima at each other's neck. After the inauguration of the King of the Iron Fist tournament, Jin was looking for answers to know what happened between his grandfather and father. Initially, he approaches Nina Williams to know what happened, but she refuses to tell him anything. She warns Jin off by telling him that the Mishimas were cursed and that they were a personification of evil. She also advises him to stay as far away as possible from the Mishimas to avoid any complications. Jin then comes across Phoenix, enjoying a drink away from the hustle and bustle of the tournament. When Jin asks Phoenix if he remembers what happened between Kazuya and Heihachi, upon which we go down Phoenix's memory lane, he tells a curious Jin what unfurled between Heihachi and Kazuya during the first and second King of Iron Fist tournament. Phoenix starts with the first tournament, in which an enraged Kazuya batters Heihachi. Kazuya had sent Heihachi flying with a single kick, after which he continued the onslaught with a barrage of strikes until he threw his weak and unconscious father down the cliff. Kazuya's eyes were glowing red under the influence of the devil Jin. Everyone thought that Heihachi would have succumbed to the fall, if not for his grave injuries in the fight. But surprisingly, Heihachi returned for the next tournament to turn things in his favor. Despite Kazuya's obvious advantage, Heihachi knocked the living daylights out of his son. In the flashback, he absolutely dominated Kazuya with his insanely powerful strikes, which did not allow Kazuya to retaliate, and he ultimately lost the fight as well as the tournament, after which Phoenix and everyone else speculated that Heihachi had killed his own son. Jin Kazama mangles the leg of Leroy Smith. On the day of the inauguration, we come across a fighter named Leroy Smith, who has a specific grudge towards the Mishima family. He also tries to attack Jin when he learns that he has been trained by Heihachi Mishima himself. Jin, curious to know what happened between Kazuya and Heihachi, merely defended himself and moved on. But the instance was noticed by none other than Heihachi, who asked his secretary, Miss Miura, to put them against each other for Jin's first fight. As the fight begins, it is Leroy who strikes first and manages to draw first blood. It is then that Jin takes his grandfather's earlier advice into consideration and remembers what happened to his mother when the ogre attacked them. Jin stokes his Mishima fire and retaliates with sheer brutality. He hits Smith with a flurry of strikes, throwing him off balance. Although shaken from the hit, Smith gets up to throw a vicious punch, only to be blocked by Jin, who retaliates with a powerful spinning back kick, sending Leroy flying across the arena. But no matter how many times Jin knocks Leroy off his feet, he keeps getting up and attacks Jin to only enrage him further. Jin finally loses his patience and lets his rage get the worst of him when Leroy refuses to give up and keeps coming at him. He decides to mangle Smith's leg, effectively rendering him unable to continue the fight and thus emerges victorious. Nina doesn't stand a chance in front of Xiao Yu's rage. In the matchup from the tournament, Xiao Yu is pitted against Nina Williams. Before the fight, we see Jin warn Xiao Yu about Nina, who is a professional assassin. Xiao Yu, in her typical attitude, doesn't take Jin seriously and keeps joking about how Nina is so serious and starts drawing a comparison between her and Jin. She goes on to say that she would open an amusement park with the prize money and invite both Jin and Nina over to see if they smile. As the fight begins, it is Nina who strikes first and startles Xiao Yu, making her lose her casual demeanor and concentrate on the fight. Nina keeps attacking Xiao Yu with all her rage. It is then that Jin questions Heihachi's decision to letting Xiao Yu fight in the tournament, to which Heihachi reveals that Xiao Yu compensates for her small stature with exceptional strategy. After that, we see that Xiao Yu deliberately lets her hit her as much as possible in order to exhaust her. No matter how many times Nina attacks her, she simply dodges her. Nina finally manages to grapple and choke her. It is then that Xiao Yu unleashes her rage and frees herself from Nina's hold and strikes her with a barrage of punches and kicks. Xiao Yu makes short work of her once Nina gets exhausted. King decimates Xiao Yu. After defeating Nina, Xiao Yu is pitted against King, a behemoth of a fighter who wears a leopard mask. At the beginning of the fight, we see King viciously spinning Xiao Yu around, and then he slams her on a tree. Xiao Yu manages to recover from the hit and retaliates with sheer brutality, startling King. She first hits him with a thunderous axe kick followed by a sweep which throws the mighty King off balance, but King manages to get up as if nothing happened. Xiao Yu keeps engaging him with all her fury, but merely manages to scratch him. Meanwhile, the King grabs Xiao Yu's arm, holding her in place for a modified suplex, then slams the teenage girl with all his might, ending the fight right there. Mishima Fire vs Kazama Pacifism. After Jin defeats King to win the tournament, Heihachi gets disappointed since Jin doesn't follow what he taught him and resorts to the values instilled by his mother. He tells him that in order to win the tournament, Jin would have to defeat one final opponent, and that is Heihachi himself. Before the fight starts, Jin asks Heihachi whether he was the one to unleash the ogre, to which Mishima replies that it doesn't matter. It is there that we see Jin's eyes glowing red as he musters all his rage, and the devil gene kicks in when he blames Mishima for killing so many innocent people, including his mother. The fight begins with both of them equally enraged, and they throw the most vicious strikes at each other. Jin attacks him with a mighty uppercut that knocks Heihachi down, but he manages to get back up in no time. After that, Heihachi starts retaliating like a man possessed, as he tells Jin that he will kill him himself if the ogre doesn't appear. What follows are a series of devastating punches that is followed by the brutal double-handed strike that sends Jin crashing through the walls of the arena, almost rendering him unconscious. In this state, Jin remembers his mother and her teachings, which taught him that no matter how powerful an enemy is, it can be defeated with proper technique accompanied by an element of surprise. Jin manages to stand up back on his feet and challenges Mishima the same way his mother had challenged the ogre. He unleashes a cartwheel kick, a signature move of the Kazama fighting style, against his grandfather, who considers it to be treacherous and lauds the fact that he is a Mishima after all. Jin continues his vicious onslaught, and after a combination of strikes, he kicks Heihachi, which dislodges the pendant from inside his doji. This stops the fight prematurely as the dislodged pendant summons the ogre, who appears to descend from a green portal. Jin Kazama slays the ogre and avenges his mother. As the ogre descends through the portal, Jin remembers what had transpired between the ogre and his mother, which eventually led to her demise. An enraged Jin charges toward the ogre and starts attacking it in every way possible, but to no avail, as it defends each and every attack in Jin's arsenal and punches him through the walls of the arena. Meanwhile, Huarang, Xiao Yu, and Phoenix rush to help Jin, but are stopped by Heihachi, who insists that he is meant to fight the ogre alone. The ogre keeps attacking, but Jin keeps standing up to all its vicious blows while recalling everything he learned from Heihachi during his training days. The demon catches hold of Jin's feet and slams him onto the arena floor. He stands back up, remembering all the teachings of Heihachi. Jin stokes his rage the same way Heihachi had taught him. After a barrage of vicious strikes, the ogre is defeated by Jin and lies still on the ground. Jin Kazama unleashes his Berserker rage. After being defeated by Jin, the ogre disappears into the green portal, but eventually, the ogre returns in a new incarnation with horns and wings, and its right hand replaced with a serpent. The creature tries to trample Jin and finally manages to get hold of him in its serpentine right hand. It is then we see Huarang attacking the beast to release Jin from its grasp. Huarang's attacks save Jin, but he falls to the ground in its unconscious state. Paul Phoenix and Xiao Yu also join the fight to help Huarang contain the creature, while Jin lies unconscious. In spite of their best efforts, they are no match for the ogre. The ogre defeats both Huarang and Phoenix in a single blow and grabs Xiao Yu the same way it choked Jun Kazama. Jin finally stands up, remembering all the lessons from both his teachers. Without any choice, he taps into the powers of his devil gene and dodges every attack of the demon before he lands a brutal kick that sends the ogre crashing into the debris. The ogre recovers and rams its horns into Jin, which lands him under a pile of rubble, but Jin makes a quick recovery and charges toward the creature with a combination of the most powerful kicks. To end it once and for all, he headbutts the ogre and destroys it, closing the green portal along with which the ogre also disappears. But in the ultimate act of betrayal, Heihachi shoots Jin in the chest after exclaiming that he is exactly like his father. Jin falls to the ground while Heihachi tells everyone that he has rid the world of great evil. Jin eventually comes back after a brief stint in the afterlife. The reincarnated Jin has ram horns and wings and starts attacking Heihachi with all his might, consumed by his rage. The mighty Heihachi Mishima gets battered by Jin in his devilish incarnation, yet he doesn't kill his grandfather, staying true to the virtues instilled by his mother. These were our picks for the best moments of Berserk rage in Tekken Bloodline. Please tell us if you agree with our choices, and also about your favorite moments from the series. Till then, please subscribe to our channel for more exciting videos on Tekken Bloodline, and many more interesting topics.